I think we understand that the refugee situation in the Magic Valley is not a done deal. I mean, even though the Board of Trustees suddenly got religion when the governor said, I don't want these people here, albeit he had said it already a month prior on this radio program, but I suppose they're boycotting it because content may have hurt their feelings over the last several months. Well, when you don't listen to the public that you supposedly represent, I don't feel that I'm doing you a disservice by just passing that along. You might want to know about that, because if you're running for re-election to that position someday, it might be important. But it's not done, because the president says he's going to go over the head of the governors. And if he has his way and he brings to bear huge lawsuits and the state says, too rich for our blood, then we're still at ground zero for refugee resettlement. There's going to be a town hall meeting tonight on this topic, taking place at 7:30 tonight. And that's going to be in Castleford. And I have some details on that from some of the folks who've been involved with the committee that has been opposed to these resettlement efforts because, of course, we cannot, in this case, screen these people. We don't know who they are. So, again, that's taking place in Castleford tonight. It's going to be in the Castleford Community Center on Main Street. Castleford Community Center on Main Street. Learn about what is going on at the local refugee center in Twin Falls. You can sign a petition at the meeting to place that matter on the ballot. You can get details tonight by going to the meeting, 7:30. There's also the possibility that ABC's Nightline will be there looking into this. Because, of course, in Washington, they're all curious as to why people out here in flyover country would have so much concern about this. After all, it's only a few hundred. Somewhere back in about 1975, someone in Paris said, well, it's only a few hundred. And then somebody in London at about 1980 said, it's only a few hundred. And then the next time somebody came along and said, it's only a few hundred. When my daughter was little and we'd be out doing some shopping, she'd see something that she wanted in one of the stores and she'd say, Dad, 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 until she'd finally get my attention. I'd say, what? And then she'd say, can we get this? And I'd say, not today. And she'd say, but it's only $5. Well, yeah. And tomorrow it'll be another $5. And the day after that it'll be $5. And one time I said to her, you know what? We don't have that much money. She said, well, go to the ATM. Same type of thinking that's taking place here among the liberals, that it's only a few hundred refugees, and then next year it will only be a few thousand refugees. What's the big deal? And then 25, 30 years from now, you've got people running around blowing up nightclubs and shooting up restaurants. 9:25, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Did you know that the health of the inner ear is affected by your cardiovascular and kidney health? The inner ear is very sensitive to changes in your blood supply. If you've had recent heart problems or kidney problems, you should have your hearing checked right away, and we recommend Dr. Christine Pickup, a doctor of audiology. She's at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert, 1218 9th Street, Unit number 2. Telephone number at the office, 208-312-0957, or go online, mountharrisonaudiology.com. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number for reaching our program, 736-0300, 736-0300. Our next caller joins us. You're up next on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. Couple points concerning coal. Number one, China's built one of the biggest loading facilities for boats in Longview, Washington. Number two, China controls most of the coal in the Powder River Basin in Wyoming now. China is bringing online coal energy plants one every 2 weeks in China now.
Because China realizes they have to build an economy. If they don't, and they don't feed all of those people, they're going to have another revolution on their hands.
Our coal, American coal, is rolling right through Idaho on railroads that a lot of the stock is controlled by the Chinese now. Idaho should put an import-export tax on coal trains moving through Idaho, $10 a ton when it hits Pocatello, and for import, and $10 a ton when it leaves Idaho.
It would
You
repave
know,
all of the roads, wouldn't it?
in my power bill, I just got a notice from Idaho Power that said they're closing the Valmy coal plant early. You know what that's going to do to
Yeah.
our power bills in Idaho?
Yep.
Our
Yep.
coal's been sold. Our
We're going to
coal
be
is
looking
going
at
to China.
in a few
This
years
whole thing's a scam.
if this continues. And thank you for the call. In a few years, if this continues, they're going to be rolling brownouts or blackouts. They'll be telling you, well, between these hours of the day. Before I moved here, we used to have, when I was living, we used to have something called Beat the Peak. And the local electric cooperative would tell you, between these hours, please pull your shades down if it was a hot day, and, try to not use any of your appliances, avoid taking a shower. Now, for some of us being men, that's not a big issue. Hey, I don't have to shower. Hey, wonderful. I'll just sit here and guzzle a couple of 12 packs and watch football, and and I'll tell the wife that I've been sanctioned by the local power company. They allow me to do this. I'm telling you right now, you need energy to grow an economy. The U.S. economy has not grown really in 15 years, and maybe not even in the last 30 years. Because you had the dot-com bubble. That was really nothing to do with Bill Clinton. It was just people who were chasing after what they thought was big money, and then that exploded just as he was leaving office, followed by recession. And then, of course, the housing bubble, and that exploded. Bang, recession again. And we've never really gotten out of these situations. These crises just we lurch from one to the next. Energy is the secret. The only thing that has really kept the economy going over the last 7 or 8 years has been fracking. Has been that the fact that we have cheap gasoline right now, we can heat our homes more cheaply. But if we didn't have that, can you imagine? We'd be paying $8 a gallon for gasoline. And just to flip that switch to turn the lights on, we'd all be living in darkness. Energy is the key. You've got to use every resource you have. And all right, so the sea level rises a couple of inches in Monterey or somewhere in California. I'll tell you what, it's still better than starving to death or freezing to death millions, tens of millions of your countrymen. More of your telephone calls on the way. Bill Colley on KLIX. I signed up for something the other day called Dave Ramsey's Show Notes. And now I get this weekly schedule that tells me everything that's going to be going on the program. I was listening to Dave Ramsey the other night because of the long 4-day weekend. I had a slightly different schedule. I wasn't in bed by 6 or 7 o'clock at night. We were all actually up. Everyone here from the radio station, all hands on deck. We were all, well, except for Brad. But see, he's the boss, so he was here in the warm studio. Friday night, the rest of us, we were warm. We had foot warmers in our shoes. We had hand warmers in our gloves. We were wearing 3 or 4 shirts, hoodies pulled over those, jackets pulled over the hoodies, scarves, hats, you name it. We were trying to stay warm. We were at Christmas in the Nighttime Sky. But I'll tell you what, nearly 2,200 people came out. When we got there and the sun was just beginning to set and it was 19 degrees, I thought, well, okay, temperature might drop 6 or 7 degrees before we get out of here. By the time the fireworks launched, I pulled out my handy-dandy smartphone and I checked on the temperature. It was 6 as the fireworks were wrapping up. 6 degrees. We were lucky there wasn't any wind because, I was watching people come in and out and I was thinking, oh my gosh, they're not going to survive. So I was happy that people got out of there quickly after it wrapped up, got back on the buses, got to somewhere warm. I hope you had a great time because the fireworks display was beautiful. Even with the cell phone camera, and they've gotten better. I got some great shots of some of the fireworks bursting that night, and it made it all worth it. You might be a little chilly and cold in those situations, but it was certainly a welcome sight in the middle of winter. Well, it's not quite winter technically yet, but it's winter. When it's 6 degrees out, calling it fall seems to be somewhat of a. It's 11 right now at our studios, 9:34. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We've got a caller with us, and you're on the air.
Yeah, Bill. The guy that you called up a little while ago that you were accusing of being an Alex Jones listener, that he was talking about was General Wesley Clark at the first of the Bush administration before they went into Iraq. He had a Class 5 memo that said that they were going to take out 7 countries in the Middle East, starting with Iraq and ending up with Iran. Syria was the next to the last. That's what's going on over there right now.
How come it hasn't happened?
That's what's going on here right now, Bill.
Who did Wesley Clark work for? The Clintons?
Say what?
Wesley Clark worked for the Clintons, right?
He said, I don't know who he worked for, but he said that he was said at the beginning of the Bush administration what they were going to do, and then Bush started carrying it out by attacking Iraq without cause.
Got another question for you. I mean, you probably lived in Idaho a long, long time, so a lot of people know you. Am I the only one that thinks you're bat crap crazy?
Probably.
Okay, thank you. Wesley Clark said, and then they were going to take out. For crying out loud, folks, the Middle East is a hornet's nest. It was a hornet's nest before we got there. In fact, it's been a hornet's nest all the way back in the Old Testament. Joshua was fighting all of these various tribes as they came back from Egypt. Nothing's changed. And the real enemy happens to be that guy down in the nether reaches. 9:35, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. News Radio 13. All you got to do with these Alex Jones, a conspiracy theorist, is mention their hero once. And I didn't even knock him today. I said, he's been spot on lately with a few things. And all of a sudden, they come crawling out of the woodwork. Remember that show, Land of the Lost, with a slee stack? Well, they've all got their claws around, or whatever, hoofs that they had, around telephone receivers anymore. It's quite an advancement. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley.
Hey, batshit crazy. I like that last caller. God bless his sanity. Unlike you. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, want to thank the potty mouths, too, for chiming in this morning. We have to go long and far to find them, but they are out there. You're up next. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bill. This is Pat.
Hey, Pat.
And besides our coal being shipped out, all the copper ore in Nevada gets transported from Ely, Nevada to Wells, Nevada, where it's loaded on train cars, and it goes to the California coast, where it's loaded on in the ships, and they go straight to China. So, where it used to take mining and it made money for the United States because we processed it into a usable product, it now goes to China, and they process it into a usable product and sell it back to us.
Years ago, I was
in control of everything.
When I was working at the Postal Service, one of my coworkers, there was a group of 4 of us that ate our lunch together every night. 3 a.m. We worked the overnight shift at a postal sorting plant, and all of us came from various oddball backgrounds. I had been a radio talk show host. One of the other guys actually had been in radio. Another guy had been an accountant, and the 4th guy was a pastor of a local church, but he'd moved on and hadn't gotten to his new church yet. So we were all sort of thrown together, and we'd have these long discussions. And the pastor, though, was a bright guy. He had a background in economics, and he said one time, the only way you keep an economy going is you take things out of the ground, and then you convert those things into usable products which you can sell to other people. What you're telling me is we're taking it out of the ground, but we're letting someone else turn it into that usable product, and they're essentially eating our lunch.
Yes, they pretty well control all the mines, and they ship it all to China where it's processed. EPA has probably done more to destroy the economy of the United States than any organization that was ever invented.
Now, the EPA, a creation, by the way, of Richard Nixon, supposedly a Republican.
Well, supposedly, and I'm not going to say they didn't. Some of the industry didn't need a little bit of help to encourage them to do a little better, but it's gone to the point where it's driven all these companies out of the United States. They can no longer operate and manufacture the goods that we used to make this nation wealthy. Now we're making China wealthy.
Yeah, no, Nixon, when he created the EPA, Lake Erie was a fetid swamp. I lived near it, and rivers in Ohio were catching fire, and I realized that there was some effort needed, and people were behind it. But it's become what happened after the creation of it over the last 45 years is they've allowed Congress, especially what's called enabling legislation, because Congress doesn't have time to handle all of the load anymore. They turn it over to the bureaucrats, these lifers who work in these agencies, and the lifers just promulgate these laws without any consent from the governed.
Yeah, it's become a bureaucracy of its own. It's a, it's a world of its own making, and it's a power that nobody can fight. We've turned it into a massive controlling agency that, like I said, has done more to destroy this nation probably than anything that's happened as far as destroying our economy.
Hey, thank you for the call. And speaking of that, I've got something I'll share with you after the coming break here. This is out of the Daily Signal. These 12 policy reforms could save an average household $4,400 a year. Actually, almost $5,000. There's some spare change involved here, but it's similar notion. Too many regulations, too much government, and it's dragging everyone down. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310. And all of the cuckoo birds out, too, as well, on this very cold day. 11 right now. We've got more coming up. Please, I hope you can stick around.